I think anybody paying attention to the intellectual life of this country for the last 30 years will be aware that the MacGill Summer School has become the default location for where people who care about this country come to discuss our predicament and try to imagine our way forward. I would have thought that was well enough known by now. And I am, of course, heartened with the Dáil and the Seanad in recess to see so many TDs, senators, ministers, senior civil servants and policy formers here present today to allow us to discuss with them their vision and our vision for the future of the Republic. I was struck last night by the unexpected passion with which An Taoiseach, I thought rather defensively to be honest, defended his whimsical decision to abolish the Seanad, and his even more whimsical suggestion that by handing over the oversight functions of the Seanad to Dáil committees, he was somehow extending democracy. It's a pity that the Taoiseach, rather than sit chatting sociably, and it's one of his better qualities that he is a sociable person, instead of sitting sociably in the hotel last night, did not bring himself here to hear his and our outgoing ombudsman discuss her experience of dealing with the committees. I'm very honoured, Joe, Chairman, to be asked here again. I'm not often asked back to places, for reasons which may presently become clear to some of you. I want to start with a poem that simply arrived almost in its entirety in one go into my head, and I wrote it, and I published it, and it has had absolutely no echo from the unfortunates to whom apparently, I say apparently because I don't claim ownership of this, whom apparently it was addressed. The Angel of History. In the Parliament House on Kildare Street, the lights were burning. It was a winter night, the usual slant rain falling. I had paused to light up a cigarette, to watch the lone guard stamp her feet, blow uselessly into her cupped gloved hands. In the colonnade of the National Library, a man was standing, a man neither old nor young, his head bare, half turned towards the lights in the great house, the high blank windows. I saw him reach inside his long loose coat, take out a notebook. I crossed the road, gathering my own long coat around me, stood in behind him, looked over his shoulder. He took no notice. One after another, I saw him cross them out, a long list of names, senators, deputies, ministers, not all by any means, but most. I heard him sigh, saw his hand hesitate, then draw a line through the topmost final name, one who had thought his fame assured. One after another the names dissolved on the page, a scant dozen remaining. I saw him ink in a question mark after these, neat and precise. He put the book away then, sliding it down carefully into a deep pocket. He turned and looked at me, nothing like pity in those hollow eyes. He sighed, then squared his shoulders, lifted his face to the rain and was gone. Gone as if he had never been. But I saw him. I know who he was. I witnessed that cold, careful cancellation. I walked on. I walked home, thoughtful, afraid for my country. Now, the ambiguous Republic. That most useful book, the Oxford English Dictionary, offers a range of meanings for the term ambiguity, the noun that gives us the adjective ambiguous. Ambiguity, we are told, can mean hesitation, doubt, uncertainty as to one's course, ability to be understood in more than one way, an expression having more than one meaning. Ambiguous is a term that offers even more food for thought, in that it encompasses indistinct, obscure, not clearly defined, admitting more than one interpretation or explanation, uncertain as to course or conduct, hesitating. Now, in our time, The word republic has acquired a comet's tail of meanings, clarifications, propositions and counter-propositions, some founded in philosophical inquiry, some deriving from the praxis of what we might call actually existing republics, so much so that it would be a brave poet, historian or lexicographer who ventured an encompassing definition at the present moment. I'm in the process of finalising the edits on a forthcoming book of essays on the Constitution that contains a number of striking and carefully thought through definitions of what a republic is, or might be, or indeed should be. And in the light of these admirable essays, my own understanding of the term republic is in active revision. I am still trying to come to grips with what a full definition of republic might entail. And perhaps this is as it should be, because after all, the roots of the word republic are in the Latin words res publica, the public thing, itself an amorphous, shape-changing concept, and one grounded in common understanding at a given moment in history, rather than, as with a legal term, being strictly and severely defined. It is not so long ago that in our public life, women were considered second-class citizens, even by some as second-class human beings. It is not so long ago that the term Irish Republic was understood in the public mind to mean Irish Catholic Republic. My point here is that at a particular moment, the public consensus accepted as an immutable given propositions that only a short time later would come to seem impossible and absurd. As understood in common sense terms, then, the word republic is best considered as fluid, reflective and aspirational, susceptible to mutation and growth, an elastic concept that at any given moment is open to challenge and redefinition. One might say the term is not just unstable, but actively, productively ambiguous in all the meanings of that term. All of which said, when we use the term republic, we intend a generally understood approximation, something that more or less contains the ideas of equity and equality, solidarity, justice, the common good. And equally, we mean something that refuses autocracy, tyranny, hereditary rule, or indeed plutocracy. Not to put too fine a point on it, we expect a republic to be a state or political entity where all are considered, at least in theory, equally provided for in their persons, rights and obligations. In the popular mind, the Irish Republic was declared in the Easter Week Proclamation, and the key provision was the promise that the new regime would cherish all the children of the nation equally. Like most independent post-colonial peoples, we have been slow to abandon folkloric belief in our foundational moments. But I think it is beyond argument that most Irish people still consider that the fundamental compact between government and citizens rests on this promise. Belief and trust in this promise, a promise common to many, if not all, states that declare themselves republics, led many to consider that because our beginnings were in the declaration of a republic, it follows that we have since been de facto a republic. Never mind that from 1922 to 1949, the 26-county state did not formally declare itself a republic. Never mind the equally discomforting fact that the 1937 Constitution did not define the state in terms of a republic, did not declare us formally a republic, and still does not describe the state in terms of its philosophical underpinnings as a republic. And never mind the fact that the term republican has been deployed to mean enemy of the actually existing state by every government from 1922 to, one might say, 1998. In the face of all this, the majority of the Irish people, by which I mean here the people of the 26 counties, have always taken it for granted that we live in a republic. A flawed republic, to be sure, fitful and uncertain in its provisions for the children of the nation, certainly not a secular republic, as the French might have it, and not underscored by a Bill of Rights, as the American republic is, but to most of us, a republic nonetheless. In the dictionary sense of indistinct, obscure, not clearly defined, it has certainly been and continues to be an ambiguous republic. I want to make the argument here that the Irish people hold to the unexamined notion that our republic is actively committed to cherishing the children of the nation, that a republic, if it means anything at all, has to be so committed, and that our governing class has never subscribed to this fond delusion. On the 21st of January 1919, the democratic programme was laid before the First Dáil, proposed by General Rishtard O'Muircheartaigh and unanimously adopted. Drawn up by Thomas Johnson and William O'Brien with the active participation of Cathal O'Shannon, this programme was toned down at the last minute by Sean T. O'Kelly. Instrumentally, we must consider it as a sop to Labour forces, as a quid pro quo for the Labour interest abstaining in the 1918 elections so as to give a clear field to Sinn Féin candidates. But whatever its provenance, it was unanimously adopted. Now, the democratic programme can be usefully considered as a fleshing out of the proclamation's promise to cherish all children of the nation equally. It proposed, inter alia, that the nation's sovereignty extends not only to all men and women of the nation, but to all its material possessions, the nation's soil and all its resources, all the wealth and all the wealth-producing processes, and went on to proclaim that all right to private property must be subordinated to the public right and welfare. Equally radically, and in words that resonate with the after-echoes of liberté, égalité and fraternité, the Declaration stated, "It shall be the first duty of the government of the Republic to make provision for the physical, mental and spiritual well-being of the children, to secure that no child shall suffer hunger or cold from lack of food, clothing or shelter, but that all shall be provided with the means and facilities requisite for their proper education and training as citizens of free and Gaelic Ireland." Stirring words indeed, and I repeat, this declaration was adopted unanimously. But consider this. In proposing the programme's adoption, General Richard Mulcahy was speaking as the TD for Clontarf, but he was also Chief of Staff of the IRA at the time. The same man would, unforgivably, order the execution of 77 prisoners during the Civil War 3 years later. He went on to become leader of Fine Gael, ironically while a member of the Seanad that his lineal successor, Mr Enda Kenny, now proposes we should abolish. Speaking about the democratic programme on RTE television on the 21st of January 1969, it's in the RTE archive, it's an instructive bit of viewing, Mr Ernest Blythe said of the democratic programme, "I never found anybody who took the slightest interest. It was some sort of hoist of a flag." On the same programme, Sean McEntee said, "We couldn't impose a quasi-socialist policy. The workers themselves wouldn't have credited your sincerity." Having prefaced this remark by saying, in effect, that an electorate mainly composed of farmers would not have stood for such a programme. Now, in the realpolitik of the day, that is very likely true. What is remarkable, though, is that already, January 1919, the First Dáil, the emerging state class was demonstrating an attachment to power and the exercise of power that was blithely prepared to pay lip service to Republican ideals without having the slightest intention of carrying them into effect. Now, there was a bitter joke in the former USSR that went, "They pretend to pay us, we pretend to work, that way everyone is satisfied." In our stalled republic, the political class has continued in the habit of pretending they mean certain things, while we, the electorate, happily pretend to believe them. But this corrosive ambiguity on both sides, from the very start, laid the foundations for the emergence of a disdainful state management class of professional politicians and senior civil servants, and at the same time, for the mass defection from political responsibility on the part of a citizenry reduced to a rubber stamp electorate. We became an ambiguous republic then, in the further sense of uncertain as to course or conduct. Our constant vacillation between two main parties, whose distinction one from the other is arbitrary, even theological rather than ideological, reflects and nurtures this ambiguity, allowing both governors and governed to permanently evade the all-important question, what kind of republic do we want to be? The sidelining of the Labour interest in 1918 is what allowed the emergence of the democratic programme. It is a bitter paradox, then, that the Labour Party, whenever admitted to government, as scapegoat and camouflage for policies they could at best hope to ameliorate in some minor way, should have so signally failed to revive the spirit, if not the letter, of the democratic programme. On the 18th of January 2009, at ceremonies held to mark the 90th anniversary of the first Dáil and the adoption of the democratic programme, Deputy, now Minister, Joan Burton said, "The democratic programme outlined a set of values for an independent Ireland that are as relevant today as they were in 1919, values that successive governments have often failed to meet." Now, I do not mean to single out Minister Burton here, since I actually do think of her as a woman of great personal integrity, but I am a firm believer in the doctrine of collective cabinet responsibility. I do not want to suggest she was being disingenuous 4 years ago, but as we stand here and survey the ruins of our dysfunctional, ambiguous republic, I should like to commend to her and to her colleagues in government the following statement from the democratic programme. We declare that we desire our country to be ruled in accordance with the principles of liberty, equality and justice for all, which alone can secure permanence of government in the willing adhesion of the people. And there is nothing at all ambiguous about the warning encoded in that final clause. The right to govern depends always and only on the willing adhesion of the people. And my profound sense at this moment in our history is that we are sliding inexorably towards the withdrawal of that consent to be governed in accordance with a mutually understood compact. Neither the first Dáil nor any Dáil since has conceived the Republic in terms of the democratic programme, no matter how much lip service has been paid to its ethos and values, no matter how much, in our naivety, we have always assumed that somewhere in back of government, that ethos, those values, were somehow mysteriously at work. Well, there's precious little mystery about what is happening at present. Nobody now alive has seen a government so resolutely determined to save the apparatus of the state at the expense of the people and our actual interests. Aggregating the sum of our disaffections and drawing from that mass of negatives a positive, it seems to me, as we approach 2016, that the time has come for us, as a sovereign people, to demand the enactment of the democratic programme or some modernised restatement of it. Realistically, I do not expect the state class to accede to this demand, which leaves us with one question that allows of no ambiguity at all. What is to be done? Today.